I'm Kirk Hanson, Executive Director of the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics at Santa Clara University. I'm very pleased today to have as our guest Major General Antonio Taguba. General Taguba is an armored officer in the United States Army, retired. He was deployed in Iraq in the Iraq War when he was asked to be the investigator on the scandal involving Abu Ghraib prison and the behavior of certain military police involved there. General Taguba has spoken today to the Business and Organizational Ethics Partnership of the Markkula Center. General Taguba, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, thank you. I'm interested in talking first about your conclusions about Abu Ghraib and the behavior of some of the soldiers who were there. You were asked in your investigation to answer the question, basically, how could this happen? How could this come about, troops that we had? And you were asked several times before Congress to answer that.
Exactly.
And what's the core of your answer? How could this occur?
Well, you know, the bottom line, there was a failure of systemic leadership in the entire chain of command. First of all, when we did the investigation, our scope was just limited to the soldiers, the military police unit that was in Abu Ghraib. But suffice to say, we found out that they were not acting in isolation. There were other elements, operatives, intelligence operatives, contractors, and the like, that were actually exploiting them for the purposes of setting the conditions for interrogation, which of course led to the torture and abuse. There was also discovery that those situations were set upon, those conditions were established by a policy that was unknown to people at that time, and we followed that trail, and now we know where that trail led to. It snowballed to the executive office of the White House.
Now, Philip Zimbardo, professor from Stanford, who has become well known for his analyses of conditions under which people can do evil things. Phil has argued, as he did today in dialogue with you, that really conditions can cause people to act in evil ways. Is that what went on at Abu Ghraib?
The conditions, you might say, can be managed and it can be controlled if they're supervised, led, and properly trained and educated. Now, those conditions are not perfect, especially when you're in combat. We had a regulation, a tri-service regulation, in other words, Army, Air Force, Navy, where I read during the course of my investigation that it says that the egregious acts or the stresses of combat does not excuse you from committing egregious acts. Words to that effect. Now, I kind of double spoke on that. So in actuality, combat can be a controlled condition because we have international law that governs us, the Geneva Convention and the like. Now, there are elements that are involved in warfare, not just U.S. soldiers, and we expect coalition forces, our allies, to act the same. But there's civilian elements in there that are also actors that may not get the same level of training or the same level of supervision that can create chaotic conditions that could lead to an Abu Ghraib.
And so contractors or others who were also in the prison contributed to setting the conditions.
We uncovered that they were inside the prison and were acting without supervision and reporting outside the military chain of command.
Let me ask about how the military does in terms of solving problems after they've arisen. You were part of an investigation and an attempt to remedy what happened. How good is the U.S. military, or maybe the United States government, at understanding why problems arose and taking remedial action?
Well, you know, we have a chain of command, and if a wrongdoing is uncovered within the command, that commander has the obligation and the authority to request for an investigation. Typically, they would ask for somebody outside of his chain of command, from somebody else, from another unit or another general. And we do that very swiftly. If on counsel of the commander, on counsel of legal authorities, then we conduct what we call an Article 32, which is similar to a grand jury, and that leads to a further investigation. Now, you could have several investigations happening at the same time. A grand jury type, a 15-6, which is administrative in nature, a criminal investigation, and others. So we try to cover all of the bases, and in the end, the desired outcome is all of those investigations converge to one conclusion, and that's what happened with Abu Ghraib. It's they used not my investigation, but the initial investigation as the base investigation, and the subsequent investigations of the military intelligence unit and other authorities drew the same conclusion. Even the Senate investigation drew the same conclusion. But that's how we do it in the military, is draw the same conclusion. But the civilian side is not always, it's not similar. They have a different channel, I should say.
Let me ask you a final question. Today, we talked at various points about how ethics and standards of conduct are built into every aspect of leadership training in the Army, U.S. Army, and in the military, U.S. military in general. How do they accomplish that? How do ethical norms get built into the general leadership training?
Well, we start at day one when a young man or woman enters the service, whether enlisted or officer. And their training starts with giving them instructions and education on standards. Those standards are voluminous: standards of discipline, standards of enforcing laws, standards of ethical conduct, standards of wearing your uniform. So it starts there. And there's so many that we basically do that deliberately over time, so we don't overwhelm them at day one, and that propagates itself throughout their time in the service. We have an established set of core values, 7 of them: loyalty, selfless service, honor, duty, courage, moral and physical, and personal, I'm sorry. And that's propagated. That is reinforced, and they're reminded all the time. Now, not everybody will follow that, but then we have a process of eliminating them from the service.
And do these standards continue to accumulate the higher one rises in the ranks?
Right, exactly.
Does a general have a set of special responsibilities as a general officer?
Well, we subscribe to the same core values, but our responsibilities, when we advance in rank, we're held to a higher standard, because general officers live in a small fishbowl, as I mentioned in our seminar today. But not everybody gets to be a general officer, and that's the final peak of your rank, and you must act a little differently within standards to lead your soldiers, because the troops will expect that from you.
They watch you closely.
They watch you closely, and they watch the conduct of your family closely. So the family is involved in subscribing to the same standard.
Thank you for this interview, but also thank you for your service in following up on the investigation of Abu Ghraib and contributing to our ability to deal with such conditions in the future.